Hey guys, welcome back to Assassin's Creed Graded. We've been going through the Ezio trilogy so far. Here again with my brother, Post Commodore. I'm the Raven Knight. Really awesome to have you guys here. So let's go ahead and just say right now, the Ezio trilogy is our favorite of the Assassin's Creed series, and we're dealing with the last. Ezio's an old now, but he's still got it kicking where it counts. He
Yeah,
is.
he does.
Yeah, he does. He's coming in on Assassin's Creed Revelations. Okay, so in this one, we're leaving Italy behind and heading over to Constantinople, or Istanbul, as some would call it, going into the heart of where Byzantium used to be. Um,
Sorry, I bring a tear to my eye.
yeah, it's beautiful. And let me just say this: I like talking about how after the first game, they really worked hard to make the game look beautiful. My God, Revelations looks beautiful. It looks like such a gorgeous game. The graphics look great. The art looks great. The characters look great. The designs look great. I even like his new assassin's outfit. It's a little bit more basic. He loses the cape.
Oh, I
But
actually like that about it. And for me, I think his Revelations uniform is actually the best.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think it looks so cool. So basically, the setup in this one is that Ezio wants to prevent the Templars from breaking into Masyaf and stealing from Altair's secret library. And he wants to get in himself to see what's hidden in there, to see if it's something that could be used to save the world or save the assassins. That's the setup. And he thinks that the secrets to getting in are found in Constantinople. Okay, so what I like about this is it's a great callback to the original game. Not only do we get closure for Ezio's story, we get closure for Altair's story, because riddled throughout the game, you find these little chips, these little discs or whatever, that when you read and analyze them, uh, you see visions of Altair's past, like what happened to him before his main story, after his main story, as he was an old man, all the way up to the end of the Assassin's Creed itself. Um, just they had such creative ideas, and some of the characters, some of the designs. I think that they really went hard on this game. I mean, what are your thoughts, bro?
Um, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Revelations, but honestly, out of the Ezio trilogy, it is one of my favorites. I like to view the Ezio trilogy, like Brotherhood and Revelations, as DLC to the second one, and you'll have much more fun with it if you view it that way too. And it has some of the same problems of Brotherhood, but overall, I think it's better than Brotherhood in pretty much every single way. The only thing where I think that it is weaker in regards to Brotherhood would be that the villain is weaker than the previous two, because Rodrigo stands above all because he is the most manipulative, he's the coolest, he's the one that has everything together. Cesare, though he was a weaker villain than Rodrigo, he was so bombastic, he was memorable. You remember him, just like the same reason we remember Dominic. But the main villain here, you really don't find out who the main villain is until like the very end.
Yeah,
And it's spoilers, of course. It's actually Suleiman the Magnificent's uncle, and he's apparently the head of the Templars. But it was also kind of interesting because this is really the first game where the assassins and Templars, where the assassins, when you start, actually have a bit of an edge over the Templars. Because in the second game, the Templars are spread out all over Italy. In Brotherhood, they pretty much control Rome, and you have to liberate it. And this part, the Templars have hideouts all over the place, but they're not the ones that are calling the shots. It's the Ottomans that are controlling the shots. Yusuf, who I love, by the way, a fun character.
yeah, I agree.
He's outside, like you see, like Byzantines, who are basically the Templars in this instance, try and attack you, but then the Ottomans come out and chase them off because they're having none of their crap. Because they're like, you're not real Byzantines, you're LARPers. Which there's some truth to that, I would say. It still pains me because seeing the light of Rome die out brings a tear to my eye. But regardless of that, you basically get to transform Constantinople into basically an assassin's paradise. And so I don't know how you want to, like, you want to just start off with, like, the story is really not why we're here, because the only thing, in my opinion, that's really truly interesting about the story is, one, wrapping up Altair stuff, which I enjoy greatly.
Agreed.
And two, seeing Ezio meet his little shum his
Yeah, Ezio gets it, sweetie. I liked that.
Yeah,
That
which
was
is
cool.
it's kind of interesting because you've seen two previous contenders, like in the first in the second in Brotherhood, you get to see that sort of that countess
Yeah.
but she sort of breaks off like I was only with you for an alliance, and then his sweetheart beforehand, which he basically had to leave because he had to go be an assassin. And this one, I don't know. I know it's not a big deal for some people. I thought they were cute. I thought they were cute
I agree, and I like it. You know, maybe it's because you and I are old souls, man. You know, we're both in our 20s, but we both have a kind of an old soul. We like the more mature relationships, and that's what I got out of his relationship with the girl in Revelations.
Yeah,
I thought that felt more. It felt cute. I just want to say it felt cute.
Well, seeing Ezio go from basically being Playboy to the silver fox that would put all other foxes to shame.
That's a great way to say it.
Particularly when you see the old a-hole that was about to be married off to your sister go up, and you're just like, dude, it's like, oh, it's a pleasure to see you again. Want my fist to reconnect with your teeth? And he's like, oh, it's the devil himself. Just running off.
That was a great moment. Oh my gosh, yeah, they handled that really, really well. Those were great side missions, definitely.
Yeah, speaking of the side missions, they included that into the Assassin's recruitment system, and I'm going to say it here, and I doubt you'll disagree with me. This is the best Assassin's Creed recruitment system out of any of the games, because the recruits you do matter, and you can choose. And when you take over an area, you can choose a high enough ranking an assassin recruit to take over that area, and then 2 missions will spawn out of that.
Yes, I like that. No, keep going.
And that's so cool. And not to mention, you can customize them a little bit more. And say you do get recruit an assassin that has a little bit of the ugly tree, fell out of the ugly tree at birth. You can give them a mask and say, I don't even want to see you, but you're good at your job, so keep doing what you're doing. And then
trust me, the female assassins definitely. The ugly tree in this game.
Yeah, and also it was a little bit more dynamic, because when you took a hideout away from the Byzantines, if you left it alone for a while, they might try and take it back. And now at first I got irritated at this because it's so annoying to have them try and come in. But after a while, I would purposely let things fall in the wild just so I could have musketeers and crossbowmen snipe Byzantines down and kill them, because I was just going, yeah.
Well, since we're talking about recruiting assassins, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the mechanics in the game.
Yeah, okay.
Like, for example, I think one of the best things they added in this game, and I don't think they added in any other Assassin's Creed game, was the hook blade.
Where is your hook blade?
Yeah, it was a great bit. And the way that this hook blade was used was genius. Some of the ways you could use it to traverse, they really upgraded the parkour, which I thought was ironic, because when you think about it for a second. Ezio's an old man. He shouldn't be able to do all these moves, but that hook blade really helps and makes it more believable that he can do these things.
Yeah, also a lot of those jumps where it's just like, well, now you don't have an excuse. Now you got a hook blade, you can go and get it. And so that would also be good. Like, if you miss a jump, you could flip out your hook blade and catch it if you were close enough, which I loved, because I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. I'm horrible at parkour.
No, it's okay.
Not just in gameplay, but also in real life. Face plant into the pavement faster than you can count to 3. But regardless of that, a lot of the mechanics, and of course, the best part of the game, other than, of course, recruiting assassins and Aerostorm, because that was still fun, bombs.
Yes, they had
bombs.
This game gives you bombs, and
you can customize them. There's you can make bombs to distract, bombs to bombs to divert, and bombs to kill. There was poison bombs, shrapnel bombs,
concussion bombs,
stinky bombs, smoke, lure, all sorts. And you could design whether they impacted immediately, whether there was a small fuse, whether they stuck to somebody's clothing, whether there was a tripwire. And the best part is, want to know who gives you some of these bombs? Pierre Reeves, he's basically your Leonardo, but a little gruffer, and he's an actual explorer and navy man for the Ottoman Empire. And so it's kind of cool to see him here. He's lesser known than probably Leonardo is. Well, definitely lesser known than Leonardo, but it's cool to see him. it's just so much fun playing with those bombs. I cannot tell you how many times I went around, saw a guard patrol, slipped a sticky bomb into their trousers, and just stepped back, sat down, and waited for them to explode everywhere.
Could you
It
say his
was
name again?
so-
Because I didn't catch his name. What was it again?
Pierre Rees.
Yeah,
I might not be pronouncing that right because I'm terrible at Turkish, but
well, no,
I
I just think
apologize to
I think that
anybody
was I think that was just a clever addition, you know. And we'll bring up stuff
Yeah.
like that when we talk about the historical accuracies. But back
Yeah.
to the mechanics. I thought that parkour was done well, assassinations were done well, recruiting assassins and taking territory well.
Customization was done well.
The bombs were probably the best thing about the game besides the assassins recruitment. It just,
Yeah.
I think the way I can really say this game and what worked about it was in all the other games so far, you worked with what the game gave you to achieve victory. In this game, they gave you a garage of tools and said, you show us how you want to win this game. So not here, you follow it's like saying, here's a blueprint, follow this blueprint, complete the game. But in this, it's like, here's a garage, have fun. Just show us what you can do to win this game. And I felt like that was so creative. Then they brought in some really interesting people and characters, but we'll talk about that with historical accuracy. So mechanics-wise, great, awesome game.
Oh yeah,
Awesome mechanical updates.
I would say out of the Ezio trilogy, it is the best mechanically.
Agreed. I will agree with that wholeheartedly. But let's talk about history. You brought up Pierre Rees or whatever. What about Suleiman?
It's actually really interesting because we mostly know Suleiman from when he was ruling, and it's rather interesting because Suleiman the Magnificent, he has such a very important president. He's probably one of the most important people in European and Asian history, and so you get to see him as a young man, basically when he's 17 or 18, and the brief interactions you have with him, you get that respect. Like, he is a very regal figure, and it's sort of a pleasure to sort of see him because he sort of takes your advice to heart. He sort of recognizes that you're from a different culture and probably a different religion, but there is wisdom in what you say. I do love the little, like when you first meet him on the boat and you have that conversation, and you can see Ezio's a little bit remiss at the loss of some of his friends in some of the wars with the Ottoman Empire. And even though he's talking to an Ottoman prince, the Ottoman prince goes, I think we can both agree that a lot of the merit of a story comes from the man who is telling it. And he said, on that we can agree. And I'm just like, oh, there's a lot of good understanding there. I really like that. And another thing they actually got right about it is Ottoman succession was weird. To make sure that there were no claimants to the throne when an emperor died, so you wouldn't have two brothers fighting over it, when the emperor was getting close to death, or the sultan rather, the sultan was getting close to death, he would select one of his sons that he believed to be the most fit to be the next ruler, and then the others would be killed, so that they couldn't have any claimants. And so one of the backdrops to the actual story is the question is, who's going to be the next sultan? Is it going to be Suleiman's father, Mehmed, or is it going to be his uncle? And of course, his uncle is eventually chosen not to be because, he's a backstabbing traitor, at least in the story. I can't remember the specific reason why he was not chosen in actual history, but regardless of that, it's an interesting backdrop to sort of see. And one thing that they probably get wrong here is that they call the city quite frequently Istanbul, which was a name for it at the time, but it was still primarily called Constantinople. It wasn't until the Republic of Turkey started to show up that they really started to switch over from the term Constantinople over to Istanbul. But Constantinople has always had so many names like Byzantium, Istanbul, Constantinople. The city is another popular one, because if you were in the Byzantine or the Ottoman Empire, if you refer to I'm headed to the city, typically people knew you were talking about Constantinople. And just a joy it was just to see just to walk through Constantinople and sort of see it. I remember I was actually in my late Ottoman history class, and my professor actually brought this game up, and I was the only person that had played it. And so that was actually really cool in my opinion. But as far as historical accuracy goes, a lot of it was very good. Most of it were slight changes due to narrative. I don't think Pierre Rees was actually sitting around in a workshop just waiting to give you bomb ingredients. I mean, I wish that was historically accurate, but probably not, because he was quite often at sea, doing what the Ottoman Navy does best, and that's wiping people out, because that's what a navy has to do. So
Well, I don't even know why I do my channel. You ought to just come on and do all the history for me, man. That was pretty good.
It depends on the era. Like, keep in mind, I was in a late Ottoman Empire class, so I know a little bit more. But when we're covering
if we're talking on that note, how did you feel about the Byzantines basically being the bad guys?
I wasn't as big a fan of it, just because I'm a Rome/Byzantine fanboy. I geek and nerd out over them a lot. But the thing is, as far as who is more likely to be Templar, to go with the Templars or support the Templars, the Byzantine remnant are more likely to be supportive rather than the Ottomans, because the Ottomans would not have been fan of the assassins at all. They definitely wouldn't have been fans of the Templars, because if they go, no, you don't understand, we're not actually Christian, we're actually a secret underground. Wait, so you're going to question the Sultan's authority? Well, technically, all right, off with their heads, get them out of here. The Byzantines, being at a weaker point in their time, since they now don't exist technically, they would be more interested in working with the underground Templar organization. So it's kind of like, I'm not a fan of it, but I get why they did what they did. They are the best candidate to be the Templars in the game. And,
Well,
the head of the Templars is also like one of the princes.
It makes sense. I'm not discrediting any of that. I think it makes sense. Now, I also want to bring up that I think one negative of the game, but also, I don't even want to say it's a negative. I think it's just an interesting facet. One of the things that we see often with Ezio, except in the second game, we can see it in Brotherhood too, is he is the foreigner coming into a new world. He's coming into a new problem. In Brotherhood, he has to come to Rome and fix Rome. And here he's coming to Constantinople and fixing Constantinople. He doesn't belong there. He wasn't raised there. He wasn't brought up there, but he's having to come in and clean up the crap, and to me, I think that's good. I don't think that's bad, but it makes the game a different style. With Assassin's Creed 2, A Story of Revenge, he's familiar with the territory. He's familiar with where he's going for the most part. He's familiar with what he's up against. In Brotherhood, again, different, but still kind of familiar. It's still Rome. It's still Italy. It's something he's familiar with. Constantinople is in a totally different part of the world, and it's going to be very different. He has to learn how things work. But his way of doing things helps bring life to what Constantinople is dealing with. And his interactions with Yusuf show that, because Yusuf is very much the Aladdin of Constantinople.
I love Yusuf. If they had not killed Yusuf off, I would have loved, like, he gets his own little spin-off game.
I almost cried when I saw that Yusuf died, because I'm like, no, he was like the best character.
Just like, oh no, look what they did to my boy. And then the first assassin, you helped raise up to clan, to overseer status, takes over for Yusuf. You go he trusted you, you take over, and I'm going, no, you're not good enough. You'll never be good enough for Yusuf.
Agreed.
But yeah, overall, I'd say, I guess, are we ready to go into grading now, or is there anything else you wanted to really add with it? Because I think we've covered most of it.
I think the only thing that we really need to talk about is, again, Desmond.
Oh, right. Desmond.
In Assassin's Creed Revelations, Desmond doesn't leave the Animus. In fact, he's in a coma, and his mind is stuck in the Animus, but it's all fragmented. The whole reason he's having to relive Ezio's life is not because he's having to learn anything about where to find a piece of Eden. He's having to restructure his life. And there he meets a very interesting figure, Subject 16.
Yeah, it's 16.
Who was another contender for the Animus, but he lost his mind, and now his soul and mind are just pieces of the Animus database. And I always thought that was tragic. It was one of the few moments where I liked seeing Desmond's situation.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you also got to explore Desmond's past through memory puzzles and all sorts of things like that. And I won't lie, Animus Island was kind of a little heartbreaking for me, because everything's kind of smoothing out for Ezio going on. Desmond is basically, his mind is fragmented. He's a vegetable right now, and his consciousness is only alive thanks to the Animus. And so what's really interesting about that is it sort of plays into the players like, no, Ubisoft, not Ubisoft, but Abstergo could really make some money using the Animus as basically a way to treat people with mental problems by actually letting them go in and explore. And I actually really like that idea that, say, if somebody had like some sort of mental psychosis, they could actually put themselves into the Animus, and you could basically maybe go and talk with their psyche and sort of lean them out to maybe some sort of clear confusion. But speaking of Yusuf being upset, I was sort of sad to see Subject 16 die. I was kind of hoping we could kind of take him with us in a way. I know it wouldn't have worked out well, but part of me had a hope beyond hope that it would work, because in the first, second, and Brotherhood, they sort of built up who like the mysterious status of this Subject 16. In the second, there was a big deal about finding his puzzles left behind about like what he did. Like he sort of showed you like the actual Adam and Eve, which I thought was silly, but doing his puzzles were kind of cool. And then you actually get to meet him and just see like his side of the story and see what they did to him. And it's kind of heartbreaking when he basically has to sacrifice himself so that you can actually regain consciousness.
Yeah, that I'll say this about Revelations. It did a good job of emotionally capturing the player. That was
at least
one thing
emotionally
that was
capturing us, because we were emotionally
yeah, we're suckers for that. Maybe the other players weren't so into it, but we were.
Well,
Anyway,
I've always kind of liked the idea of like going into somebody else's mind to a machinery and sort of like exploring around. Like, this is off topic. Like, you know, that old Teen Titans episode where they go into Raven's head and they sort of
I like that episode.
I liked it too. I kind of got the same vibe with the Animus. I'm like, there's some possibilities you could pull off with the Animus here that I don't think they fully explored.
I think the whole idea of diving into another person's mind or soul is something that movies and TV shows try to play with, but no one does it really well. But I will say that Revelations and in that Teen Titans episode, they handled it interestingly. So. Mm-hmm. All right, so I think it's time to go ahead and grade this one. So, would you mind giving the grade?
I'm going to give this one an A-. I think that the story isn't as strong as it was in 2. I think I'd argue it's about the same level as Brotherhood. But the fun factor is just cranked up to 11. It compensates for so much. You will go around blowing guards up, recruiting assassins, having fun with those. Like a lot of the side missions with your assassins are more fun than some of the main quests. Also, seeing Altair return is a lot of fun. I greatly enjoy it. Probably the biggest problem I have with it is the same as another problem I had with Brotherhood, is that unlike the previous games and Brotherhood being excluded, you only stay in one city with the exception of a few times you wander out of it for certain missions. It's only Constantinople, but Constantinople is worth exploring around. It's a fun, vibrant city to go through.
I'm gonna agree to a point. I would give it an A+ personally. It was the first Assassin's Creed game after 2 that really made me feel like another 2. It gives good closure to Ezio's story as well as Altair's story, like you said. The mechanics are phenomenal. The things they add are so good with very few problems in between. Seeing this old badger, this old fox, trying to still play with the young. I see Yusuf and the other assassins of Constantinople, and you see this old gray man come in like he's going to lead them. You can almost feel like, man, this is a guy who's really lost his luster, but he shows that he can still hold it. The moments where we see, like I thought one of the best moments for me watching the game, playing through it, was when he does go to Masyaf. When he actually physically goes to Masyaf at the end of the game to find the library. And there's just this moment where he looks at Altair's skeleton. And you can just see, it gave me chills. You see where this game began and where it is now.
There was a lot of respect that was given towards that. And even more respect further when they finally released Assassin's Creed Embers, which was a little short that showed how Ezio finally passed on.
We'll talk about that later, but yeah, I agree. Ezio, as we wrap up Ezio trilogy, I just want to say I couldn't have asked for a better closure to Ezio's story. That's why I give this game such a high score. Yeah, you're right. It's really not, at the end of the day, quite as good as 2 was for us. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who disagree. But I don't know. To me, it just felt like 2 was a great opener to Ezio. Revelations, I thought, was the perfect closure to Ezio's story. So taking your minus and my plus, let's give it an A. I think that an A is a solid A, a good game, a fantastic game. I love it. But you know what, guys, that wraps up the Ezio trilogy. Before we move on to what comes later, Assassin's Creed 3, let's talk briefly about Assassin's Creed Embers very quickly. Assassin's Creed Embers was a short that was released, like you said, about Ezio's eventual death, where he's retired in Tuscany now with his wife and daughter. And then along comes a Chinese assassin named Xiao Jun, who has run away from China seeking Ezio's help because the Assassin's Creed Order there is falling apart, and she wants his help in restoring it, and he wants nothing to do with her. But unfortunately, the Chinese Templars have followed her, and she accidentally involves Ezio, so he has no choice but to fight them off. And along the way, he gives her a gift. We don't know what the gift is. You have to play her game to find out what it is, and explains what it takes to build the creed, like to build the assassins, and explains that love is what unites us. Then she leaves to go back to China to reestablish the order, and he dies in Tuscany. Well, not in Tuscany. He dies in Florence, remembering his younger days, and it's very sad. But what it built up for me was that we were going to take the next Assassin's Creed game and go to China, which I thought was going to be a perfect segue, a perfect new game.
Yes.
That's not what we got, obviously.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't think that we would have been so upset. It's just when we had to petition for a long time to give us a Xiao Jun. We want to see her story fulfilled. And they said, okay, fine, here's a 2D scroller. And we didn't get Assassin's Creed with that. We got Mario with a hidden blade, which isn't as cool as it sounds. I'm sorry, I had to say that. You okay there?
Oh, you're back on.
Oh, do we have a little glitch on here?
Yeah, we had a glitch where your screen froze and I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I couldn't hear you either. But regardless of that, that's probably a sign we probably need to stop it. So, but anyway, we got what we needed.
Yeah, we got what we needed. We'll
fine tune and tweak it out later.
We'll cut out the Embers part when I edit it, and we'll talk about Embers at the beginning of Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. But anyway, that is